There's something profoundly mysterious about the science of coral. I'm Max, I'm a journalist, and I just wrote a story about the math and physics of how coral grow into such weird shapes. So a little context about coral first. Coral is an animal. It's also a superorganism of sorts and a kind of ecosystem. Those coral reefs that you're familiar with, they provide shelter and resources to all sorts of marine organisms from algae to sharks. And the backbone of that reef is a skeleton made of calcium carbonate, the same stuff that you might find in eggshells and in chalk. Where does that calcium carbonate come from? It gets oozed out by these tiny little animals, the coral polyps. Small creatures that kind of look like anemones. Anywhere between hundreds to hundreds of thousands of coral polyps team up to build these giant structures, much bigger than themselves. They bulge and they branch and they ripple and they fan out into all the shapes that we know coral can grow into. Shelves and boulders and pillars and cauliflower-like nubs. So many different shapes. What's strange is that scientists don't really know how coral interacts at the level of these polyps to coordinate and build such giant structures. Two coral of the same species could build radically different shapes just by being in different conditions. And so we know that environmental factors matter, we know that genetics matter, but what exactly is happening physically and biologically, that's still a mystery. The story that I wrote for Quanta introduces some fundamental physical principles for how these different shapes might come about. And in reporting that story, I asked what it might look like for these polyps to actually interact, these tiny microorganisms. Some species have intricate structures connecting them, these canal-like vessels that they can use to communicate, that connect polyps basically at the mouth, that they can exchange nutrients and potentially even hormones that signal to grow into particular shapes through their gastrovascular system. Weird.